Oh, Vine, can you please make him stop crying? He murmured sleepily and pressed a pillow on his ear to block the loud wails of his son. He groaned and turned towards his 2 months old son who was lying beside him. Sleep, young man. He gently patted his belly, but he kept crying, thrashing his little limbs. Instead of making him sleep, Jungkook himself fell back asleep. But his son didn't like him sleeping peacefully when he was there beside him. So he wailed more loudly. Jungkook's eyes snapped open and he looked at his little one who was looking at him with his teary doe eyes, crying uncontrollably. Shoo, young man, sleep, please. Sleep like I was sleeping. Come on, close your eyes. He shifted closer and said in babish tone. The little boy stopped crying and stared at him. Jungkook grinned at him. Yeah, that's like my good boy. No more crying, okay? We will go back to sleep now, yeah? He smiled, but his smile dropped instantly when his son's lips trembled and he started crying again. Jungkook made a crying face. His heart clenched when tears rolled down his son's chubby cheeks. He wanted to hold him in his arms and comfort him, but he was scared to even hold his little fragile body. Ryan, come here, he is crying. He yelled for his wife, who made her appearance in few minutes. Entering inside the bedroom, she watched him sitting in front of their crying son. He is hungry, please feed him. He took a quick glance at her. Ryan sighed and shook her head in disappointment. You are supposed to pick him up and console him, not to sit quietly and watch him cry, she uttered as she walked over to the bed and carefully picked the little boy. She rubbed his back and swayed him side to side, mumbling sweet nothings in his ear. I'm scared I'll drop him. He's just like a little ball, he mumbled with a pout. While peered at him and shook her head, she sat down on the bed, taking their son Minho in her lap, whose loud wails had died down to soft sniffs by then. You are of no use, she said as she unbuttoned her shirt and started breastfeeding him. How am I supposed to feed him? I have no milk in my. He uttered, gazing at his son, who was having his meal as if he was hungry from ages. He exhaled deeply, crawled to the other side of bed, and sprawled like a lazy panda. Shutting his eyes, he went back to his dreamland. Jungkook, wake up! It's 9 in the morning. She spoke, glancing at the digital clock placed on the nightstand. 5 minutes. He purred sleepily. Why smiled, gazing at her son with adoration, who was at the verge of falling asleep. She gently kissed his head as he slept, now with a full stomach. Keeping his head on her shoulder, she patted his back to burp him. After his successful burping, she got down the bed and laid him down in his crib. After covering him with his mini blanket, she stood upright and buttoned her shirt. Her eyes shifted toward Jungkook, who was snoring, having his best beauty sleep. He is sleeping like he had to wake up all night to feed the baby. She walked over to his sleeping frame. Jungkook, wake up. She shook his shoulder, but all she got was him snoring in return. Jungkook, I swear if you didn't wake up in 1 second, she threatened, but he smiled, roaming in the island of banana milk in a stream. Wine huffed in irritation. She smirked when an idea popped in her head. Walking around the bed, she climbed on the other side. Pressing her feet on his back, she held the headrest tightly and forced him to the edge of bed. Oh, Hulk, move! She grunted, using her whole strength but only able to move him with few inches. I need to cut your diet. She breathed out and sucked a good amount of air before doing the same thing again. After some long, exhausting minutes, she managed to push him till the edge. Good morning, she sang with an evil smile as she pushed him down the bed. He fell down on the carpeted floor. She smiled and patted her back, assuming she succeeded in her mission of wake Jungkook. But to her dismay, he lifted his head, opened his eyes slightly, looked side to side, turned on his stomach, and slept all over again as if he hadn't fallen off the bed just now. Ryan's jaw dropped. and she blinked her eyes, a look of disbelief taking over. She scoffed, registering the situation. Sliding down the bed, she sat beside him. She glared at him, burning from inside because it should be her sleeping like this, not him. Jungkook, wake up, she voiced out through her gritted teeth. He rubbed his eyes and turned on his back, still sleeping. She flared her nostrils, feeling anger bubbling up inside her head. John, Jungkook, wake the up before I kill you with my bare hands. She pinched his nipples, twisting and stretching them, which made him wince. He shot his eyes open and sat up. Wyan left his and glared at him. He rubbed the sore area and looked at her with his confused, droopy eyes. Why would you do that? He whined. I have been trying to wake you up from what feels like forever, but you kept sleeping like a sloth. What was I supposed to do? She pursed her lips, her forehead creased with annoyance. Why, it's Sunday today, my day off, and I usually sleep whole day. Don't bother me and let me sleep. He was about to lay down, but Wine gripped his arm, restricting his movement. He whined, giving a look of disapproval. Did you forget your parents are visiting us? Now get your lazy up and take a shower and calm down in 5 minutes. The cook is on leave. We have to cook lunch. She mused. He sighed and nodded. She left his arm and stood up. She made her way towards the door. Stopping at the threshold, she glanced back at him. Her brows crooked when she found him trying to lie back down. She removed her slipper, winding her hand back and aimed it on his head. He jolted up and gaped at Wine with wide eyes. Don't you dare to sleep, she threatened with big eyes, keeping her voice low, careful to not wake their little one. He gulped, seeing her scary eyes. To the bathroom now, she whispered yet, pointing at the bathroom door. He jumped up from his place and disappeared inside the washroom in seconds. Vine exhaled deeply, calming herself down. She walked over to Minho's crib, bending down to his level. She placed a lingering peck on his forehead, peeking at his cute sleeping profile for the last time. She exited the room with a smile. Wine and Jungkook were busy preparing lunch. Wine was occasionally glaring at him because he kept mashing things up. I am sorry, he apologized for the upteenth time with a nervous smile. Don't worry, I'll clean it. He said and grabbed some tissues to wipe off the spilled water on the counter. Mom, Dad will be here anytime and we are not done preparing the lunch, she uttered, moving her hands faster. Just after Wyan mentioned it, the doorbell rang. Wyan shared a look with Jungkook. They were about to move to open the door but halted when Minho's loud cries echoed in the house. The doorbell sound must have startled him. You go and handle Minho, I go and handle my parents. Nodding to each other, they went different ways. Jungkook opened the door with a smile. Mom, Dad. He smiled at them and stepped forward to hug his mother, but she shoved him aside and stormed inside the living room with an excited smile. Where's my daughter and my little munchkin? Jungkook scolded at her, boring holes in her head with his glare. Here we are. Wine descended the stairs with Minho in her arms. Jungkook's mother motioned towards them and gently hugged Wine. She pulled back, placing a peck on her forehead. Her attention then diverted to her grandchild, who was looking at her with his innocent gaze. My munchkin is so cute. She took him from Wine, talking to him in babyish tone. The little boy stared at her, not understanding a single word. Dad, how are you doing? She walked over to her father-in-law and gave him a small hug, which he reciprocated with a smile and patted her head. Am I invisible? He muttered, being displeased about her mother playing with his son without acknowledging his presence. Wine and his father chuckled at his sulking self. His father patted his shoulder. It happens, dude. It's called karma. He spoke, pulling him in a light hug. What karma? What did I do? He felt a frown forming between his forehead. His father parted away and gave him a small smile. When you were born, you had all of your mother's attention. She didn't even look at me. That's the reason you are a single child. Otherwise, you would have at least 30, 40 siblings. Now your son is taking revenge for my miseries. He stated with a chuckle and stepped over to his wife, taking Minho from her. Mom, I'm here too. He whined with a pout. His mother rolled his eyes. She walked over to him and hugged him, a smile reciprocating the hug. Stop behaving like a kid. You are a father now. She parted away and smacked his head. He pouted and rubbed his head. But I am your son. I can be a kid in front of you. His mother shook her head, disappointed but not surprised. Wine, I assume you are not done preparing the lunch. Come, I'll help you. She looked at Wine. No, Mom, it's okay. I'll take care of it. You play with Minho. She politely declined for help. Come on, Wine. I'm not a guest. I want to help besides. I have a lot to gossip. Let's go. She chirped excitedly. Wine couldn't help but chuckle and nodded. I'll help too. Let's go. Nope. Stay with your dad. You'll help less and mess up more. She was quick to stop him. He sighed and walked over to his father, who was playing with Minho. The two ladies dismissed towards the kitchen. Why laughed at another story Jungkook's mother told her about Jungkook's childhood. I'm telling you, one, he was the most stubborn child. God knows how I survived between these weird father-son duo. No, no, Dad, I can't. Wan peeked in the living room, hearing Jungkook's voice, and found his dad giving Minho to him and him backing away in fear. Dad, he will slip from my hands. He's just so small. I don't want to hurt him. He presented his concern. I'll teach you. I have a great experience. You're being afraid for nothing. He waved his head in air like it was a petty task for him. You see how he is boasting? He himself didn't hold Jungkook until he was one. He was more scared than Jungkook. Who? Braggart. She scoffed. Why chuckled hearing her. Wow, Dad, he's so small and so light, he exclaimed in astonishment when he successfully held his son 2 months after his birth. Wyan, he hopped inside the kitchen with Minho in his arms, a proud smile dancing on his lips. See, I can hold him now, and he is so relaxed with me. He chopped in happiness, earning a chuckle from Wyan. I see, you are a great dad. She praised him, to which his heart swelled with pride. Their conversation was interrupted by Minho, who shrieked softly before letting out a sigh. Jungkook observed his movements, slowly leaned down to him and sniffed his butt. He scrunched his nose in disgust and peered and whined. He pooped, he stated, his face twisted in disgust. Give him to me, I'll change his diaper. Wine advanced towards him, extended her hands. No! He shook his head and stepped back. I'll do it. I have just learned how to hold him and I don't want to give him to anyone. Besides, I'm a great dad. I can handle my son. He spoke. Holding Minho close to his chest, he made his way upstairs. Do you even know how to change a diaper? Wayne spoke from behind. He halted and looked at her over his shoulder. I'll figure it out because I'm a great dad, he replied, continued ascending the stairs and disappeared in their room. He's going to call me in just 20 seconds, she said to her mother in law, who nodded and started the countdown. 20, 19, 18, 4, 3, Vian. As Vian said, Jungkook called out for her. She shared a glance with her mother in law, who was stirring the soup. Vian, come here quick, she heard his panicked voice. Her heartbeat accelerated in fear and she ran towards the room. Her in laws followed closely behind. What would happen? She asked, her breath heavy and intense due to panic and running. Her motherly instincts kicked in. Her eyes desperately looked for the sight of her son. She let out a sigh of relief when she found him lying on the bed chewing on his feast. He was thrashing his lumps in air. Jungkook tore his gaze from his son and shifted at Wyan. Wyan, I think our son is a mutant kid, he mused. Wyan gaped at him. What do you mean? She asked, perplexed, while his parents were observing everything quietly. Look, his soldier is very small, like tiny one. Mine is really big. He pointed at Minho's genital. Wyan looked at him as if he had grown two horns. His mother had the same expression as Wyan, while his father burst into fits of laughter. Jungkook's mother glared at his father, who slapped his hand on his mouth, still laughing, but now silently. Wyan looked at Jungkook's mother. I so wanted to kill your son right now. I'll help you bury him. Both the ladies glared at Jungkook, who was standing clueless about their reaction. He thought he made a strange science discovery, but why did their look made him feel like he was the dumbest person alive? What? Why are you guys looking at me like that? He stepped back when Wyan stepped forward. Shoving him aside, she changed Minho's diaper and buttoned his onesie. Should we go and see a doctor? His mother fisted her hands, going through 100 shades of anger, whilst his father was having a hard time stifling his laughter. He was literally in tears. Jungkook, he's a kid. His organs will grow off with time, she explained. He made an awe face and nodded. I should start feeding him banana milk. He and his organs will grow off faster, he proposed with a wide smile. Mom, I'll handle my son. Why don't you handle yours? I think he really need a peace of mind. At this point, she looked so done with her husband. But what did I do? I was just suggesting. He trailed off. I thought you'll get a little bit of my intelligence, but no. You have to be just like your dad. His father, who was rolling on floor, stood up with a jerk. What do you mean? He narrowed his eyes at her. Don't laugh at him like you weren't like him at one phase of your life, like you didn't ask me the same absurd questions like him. Saying so, she dragged Jungkook with her, his father hot on her tail. Wan sat on the bed taking Minho on her lap. Minho baby, promise me you won't be like your dad. You'll be like a smart mom. I don't want my future daughter-in-law to go through this. She smiled when he smiled, showing his gums. Change is the truth of life. Even the winds change their direction after a certain time. But as they say, history repeats itself. Just like it did this time, it's going to repeat in the next generation also.